This is a continuous improvement movement reserved for the few with the grit to prove it. Everybody.
Good morning. This is Calvin Williams. I'm here with my co-host, Maria Williams, and this is the Ticket to Freedom podcast. In this show, we talk about continuous improvement as it relates to current events in the news. And we got a very exciting story for you today. This is probably one of the best articles I've seen in a very long time from the McKinsey and Company. It's called Breaking Operational Barriers to Peak Productivity. This is a fascinating article, and I got to be honest with you. There is so much really good statistics and information in this article that we're not going to touch on all of it. We may just hit a few of the top points, and I highly encourage you to go Google it and check it out yourself and take it from there. So I'll start with one of the most impactful stats I've seen, especially as somebody who has been a practitioner in operational excellence for a couple decades now, telling on my age a little bit there. But the stat says that since the financial crisis of 2007, 2009, we've only seen a decline in productivity, especially for the top tier companies. And I thought that was fascinating. Maria, you had a chance to look through the article as well. What were some of your takeaways on that?
Yes, Calvin, we haven't grown in productivity since 2007. That is a really damning statistic. But why? What happened? McKinsey goes in depth into the different reasons that contribute to this stagnation in productivity, from employee engagement, technology adoption, the fourth technology revolution. There are things on all these pillars that affect productivity. Would you like to go in some of the most impactful things that are causing this lag in productivity?
Yeah, there's a lot, right? And you mentioned some of the things like tech revolution and all that stuff. You would think that with the level of tech development and investment and revolution, we would see a huge productivity boom instead of a gradual decline since 2007, 2009. So what I find interesting also is along with the technology boom, we've also seen a boom in operational excellence programs throughout companies. And I honestly think that companies are using OpEx as more of a facade than an actual way of working. And they're sort of taking the label of OpEx, but not really developing the operational discipline that goes with that to see the real gains in productivity. And I think one of the biggest challenges or biggest weaknesses that companies have experienced that hurt their productivity growth is just this lack of discipline, right? I think the article talks about, what really needs to happen is that companies and people in companies, especially leaders and cascade throughout the organization, need to just continuously remain in CI cycles, right? PDCA, scientific method, and so forth. So I think this piece is missing. Companies have just focused on tools instead of developing the discipline, the behavior that goes along with the true operational excellence culture.
Mhm.
What are some of the other ones that you noticed?
Based on what you just said, I just wanted to add that there is a huge gap in companies on the programs that support their people into doing those CI cycles. So, for example, there is no continuous feedback, developmental feedback. So people don't know where can they improve, what they need to be doing. And when there is feedback, it's very superficial, such as, what did you do today? How did the machine run today? And that's about it. So there is not developmental feedback. And there is this statistic that impressed me the most, and is that when people get developmental feedback, their engagement increases exponentially. So for reference, the rate of engagement on a global scale is about 23%. But when you give an employee developmental feedback, that increases to 80%, because now they know what to do, they feel appreciated, They feel the company cares about their growth, development, and they feel their personal purpose is attached to the company purpose, which
Mm.
really motivates people to be productive.
Yeah, those are huge. And you know what's unfortunate is that in some companies they consider coaching as a negative thing, as a negative connotation, right? They see, only poor performers need to be coached, right? And anybody who's ever achieved anything significant in any field is accompanied by a good coach, right? So there is a paradigm shift that needs to come around coaching that coaching is, hey, this is about performance. It's not personal, right? To your point, a lot of feedback people get is usually almost leading from behind type of feedback, where it's like, you failed and now you need to improve or else kind of feedback, right? Where truly useful and productive feedback comes in a timely fashion, right away, almost immediate, right? You touch the flame, you feel the heat, right? You learn not to touch the flame again. It's specific to the action that was just committed, right? So you can get, good quality of feedback and of course a clear signal of feedback. So the better a company gets at integrating, incorporating feedback into the very system itself, the better people can take the feedback almost in real time and react in such a way to minimize losses and minimize negative outcomes. So, um, those two things between leaders as coaches, leaders learning to ask questions instead of give directions and letting people learn and solve problems on their own, and then the feedback loop, tightening that feedback cycle has an immeasurable benefit to a company's performance.
We talk a lot about strategy alignment.
Yeah.
And, people go to work not just because they have to pay the bills, but because they want to make an impact and they care. So companies are not doing a very good job aligning the company purpose to the personal purpose of the employee in a way that people feel they're making an impact in society. So they have to be connected, with the company, they have to be connected with the client. A lot of people within the company are totally levels removed from the
Mhm.
customer. And
Mm.
so they don't know what impact they're making, what they're working for. There is this company, agricultural, that sent some of their employees to see the client. And once they saw on site the impact of their product having impurities, the impact that had on their environment, the impact that had on the food, the impact they had in the community, they went back to work, you know, renewed,
Re-energized.
yeah,
Right.
re-energized to do a better job because they could almost touch the impact they were making. And there are other
Yeah.
simple things, even though technology is changing so much and AI is predicted to make a dent of billions and billions of dollars in the economy, it comes back to people. Because
Mm.
in this research in particular, companies currently say only about 5% of their revenue can be attributed to AI, when it
Mm.
was predicted to be way larger at this point.
Yep.
But they can really identify people's behavior to their return on investment really easily. So, and you can go back, you don't have to invest millions of dollars to be productive. So things like using visual tools to create transparency about performance, using technology to display your data in real time, things like that can make a big impact. What do you think, Calvin?
Yeah, you touched on a lot of excellent points. One I want to talk to is AI, right? To your point, people can attribute 5% of their EBITDA growth to AI, right? If you look at the enormous potential of AI, you would expect the number to be much higher. But what we're seeing is, along with technology, you still need operational excellence, right? You
Mhm.
still need the discipline to actually use and get value from the technology. You still need the discipline to kind of remain in those CI cycles and always be looking for the next opportunity for improvement. You and I had talked about AI right, not long ago. And, you know, AI really plays in the space of what happens on a computer right now, anyway. I think the world will change and we'll get more robots that can do work that's being done by people, and that's already happening. But for the large part, AI is happening on the computer. And in most industrial environments, right, most of the work is done either by machines or by people manually, right? So this is a place where AI can't really put out an extra, 10 units per minute on a production line. So that's huge too. One of the other big factors that's leading to companies not really growing, improving their productivity is during COVID, we had a lot of folks exit the workforce. I think the baby boomer generation is retiring at a rate of 10,000 people per day. I heard a statistic not long ago. Think about how much critical process knowledge and critical business knowledge they're taking with them. And there's a huge challenge of taking that knowledge out of their head as they exit and then transferring it to the next generation that's coming behind them to do the work. So that's another huge opportunity.
To summarize here, focus on the basics that you can affect right away. It takes discipline, so it's not easy. It's very attainable, not easy. So recognize things like recognizing achievements, making people feel cared for and important and appreciated. Clarify the relation between work and purpose. Understand the customer needs. Use visual tools to create transparency about performance. Double down on development-oriented feedback. Discipline. It comes back to discipline to me. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can define discipline as doing the right thing, regardless of how you feel about it.
Even if you don't want to.
Even if you don't want to. And, we tell our children that all the time, right? And ourselves that all the time. So that discipline is the gap between your current state and your desired future state, right? It's doing those things. So, one last point, and then we'll close out, is when it comes to employee engagement. I think we mentioned that earlier in the recording. So companies suffer chronically from poor employee engagement. And one of the reasons is that employees feel like they're not listened to, right? They don't connect with what the company's trying to do. They're not really listened to. Their ideas aren't heard and acted upon by the company. And it's a shame because what it really means is that companies are leaving about half of their brain trust outside the four walls of the business, right? Where only a few people have the privilege of thinking and deciding and driving action, where everyone else is like a thoughtless, worker, right? When companies do better, and this is what operational excellence is really trying to do, they do a much better job of engaging both the hearts and the minds of the people doing the work, because a lot of time the people doing the work are the ones with the answers to the problems that they face on a day-to-day basis. It's just that companies don't do a great job of collecting those solutions and then acting upon them to drive productivity. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. It was a great time. Again, this is one of the most exciting articles I've read in a long time. This is Calvin and Maria with Improve University, and this is the Ticket to Freedom podcast. Let's get better every day. Thank you.
Just in time, not a second slow. From the top flow to the shop flow, come on. Everybody.